What do you remember about the very first time you stood up in front of an audience and delivered something to them?
So the very first time I would have done it, I would have been 6 or 7 years old, because I was usually picked as the narrator at school. I went to a Catholic school, so it was always the same story. You only had to learn the lines once. I'll remember that one for the future. I think then I didn't know that you were meant to be scared. When I went to my first networking event and learnt about this 60-second introduction that I had to do, I was terrified. But I think that was because I was amongst a group of peers, and I believed that everyone else in the room was more successful than me. So as soon as I learnt I had to speak in front of all of these people, my heart sunk, my mouth dried up. The really horrible thing is that when I start talking about it, it starts to happen. My breath went. And so when I was at school, before I knew that you were meant to be scared, I didn't used to get scared of it. Put me in my first room full of networking peers, other local business people, and I was absolutely terrified that first time.
Yeah, it's surprising, isn't it? And do you get the imposter syndrome sometimes?
So this is really timely. I literally wrote on Facebook 2 or 3 days ago about how much I'm doing imposter syndrome at the moment. I'm just launching something else in the business, but I was at an event yesterday in Nottingham with a bunch of really, really clever people around me, and the best that I could do for my nerves was remind myself that I'm there to learn from them. And listen to them. Whenever I get up on stage or when I speak this lunchtime, I will have that moment of thinking, well, what do these folk need to learn from me? They're all really successful in business. And then I have to remind myself that someone has chosen me to do it today, so they must think I've got something to impart. But imposter syndrome, I used exactly that expression in a Facebook post which has gone rather viral 2 or 3 days ago now, because that's exactly what I feel every single time. The nerves, the imposter syndrome, I think all of that is actually what helps us to have the energy on stage that comes across.
You've authored the books Business Networking for Dummies, Instant Networking and Win the Room. So how have you managed to get that across to people today?
The very first thing that anyone needs to remember about a day like today, generally, is that this is the start of the conversation. I think where people get really nervous and don't know what to say is that they set their expectations of days like today too high. On the day, all you're looking to do is start conversations with people which you can then continue after the event. What so many people think that a day like today is about meeting someone, saying, "Hi, I'm Stefan, this is what I do," and someone will buy from them. It's very unlikely to happen like that. And if you get your expectation right, that all you need to do is start a conversation, then connect with people on LinkedIn or Instagram or Facebook, whichever is their preference, then you can keep the conversation going forever. That's the first thing. The second thing is that most people need to get a bit better about how they describe what they do. And it's really simple to do. It's not about being the best presenter in the world. It's sometimes about dumbing it down so that people understand why they should have the next conversation with you. And always understand what you're selling. You're probably not selling your service, you're selling the next conversation. And that's important as well. And I think that all comes down to expectations. All you're looking to do on a day like today is connect with people, like actually connect with them, like have a conversation with them, like get to know them, and then connect with them in the 2025 sense that we connect on LinkedIn, and then keep the conversation going afterwards.
Of course, you do this thing where at an event like this, you involve people's experiences during the day and you bring that up in your talk.
Yes.
So just explain how that works.
I and the audience are all part of the same team when I'm speaking. And you've hit on a little bit of, I guess, stagecraft, because if I can chat to someone during the day and have a chat with someone about networking, and then I can come back a little bit later and say, do you know what, I was talking to Chris Dawes from Visual PR just earlier today, and we were talking about how to get the best out of an event. All of a sudden, Chris isn't just sat there looking at me. He's part of the presentation. It helps me to bring it alive for the audience as well. So, and it inspires me. If I'm answering questions from the stage, if one person's asked a question, it's likely that most of the audience have got the same question. So I like to bring the audience into my world when I'm up there, and one of the ways that I do that is talk to as many people as possible before I go on stage. And it really does. It's a device which I use as well in terms of stagecraft to bring me and the audience into the same place, rather than just me being the person who's talking at them.
People tend to think that when you network, this word networking is quite a scary thing, or it can be a bit cold. You need to go in, you need to be formal about it. What you're saying is you don't need to make such a big deal of it.
When we put inverted commas around the word networking, and when we come to an event like this and it's described as networking, people get nervous about it because they think they've somehow got to be different than they would be in real life.
Yeah.
When I very first started understanding networking, I realised that when I arrived at an event, I would typically start conversations with talking about things like the weather or the parking or where are the toilets, where's the coffee, and lots of people looked for really clever ways to open their conversation. And people would ask me, what's the first thing that you say to someone? I'd say, well, I'm usually like, I've driven an hour and a half, where are the toilets, please? Where do we find the coffee?
Yeah.
Just talk as humans. You don't have to put this networking label around everything. When we start talking as humans, the person that you're talking to is likely to say, oh, and I'm sorry, I haven't asked, what do you do? And then you can talk about your business. But if we just be more human about everything, the conversation tends to flow a lot more easily.